right, so I've got Ty in here with me today, and I wanted to go over how to build trust and rapport appropriately, because I know a lot of new people in any kind of sales position will get distracted by trying to be over the top with their rapport stuff, like pretending that they know someone they don't. So there's a way to do that where you build rapport throughout meeting with somebody. Can you go through what you do to create that trust and appropriate rapport so that it's not uncomfortable where they can tell you're trying to like fake it?
Right. And this comes from learning how not to do it. So when I was in door-to-door sales, I was and it was a different sale, so you had to build a little rapport, I think, but I probably took it way too far because I get along with most people, and so I thought that I had to, ask them about the Broncos and their grandkids and their dogs, and I'm not the biggest fan of dogs. So I would spend a lot of time just like really, letting them go on those tangents and taking them on those tangents and then trying to get back on track. And I think, like, for example, the longest I was ever in a house was in solar was 6 hours.
Oh,
And most of that was just wasted. And then, come to find out in the paperwork, there was all these issues. So it was a little bit of both, but that's like more than half a day. So it's just brutal. Whereas now it's, more of like, all right, let me establish myself as the authority. It's cool with insurance because you do that with your license. But when I walk in, I'm not asking about the weather. The one question I do ask every time is, and it starts my assumptiveness, right? Because going into it, I want to be assumptive. It's like, good day so far? And they always say yes, but it's like me asking. I just want them to say, yeah, it's pretty good. I say, yeah, me too, pretty busy. And then I go into it. Like I said, John, I spoke to you on the phone yesterday. This is in regards to the blah, blah, blah coverage, which this is how it works. That's how you understood it, right? So I'm immediately, within sitting down, after like good day so far, it's like, oh, all right, I'm pulling stuff out of my bag. Here's my license, and then jumping right into it. Now, I've established myself as a credible source. They see me as the authority. Now, throughout the rest of the presentation, I don't really like to go on tangents too much. If a client does, I'll kind of entertain it for a little bit, and then I'll blame my ADD and to get back on track. Sorry I talked so much, I got ADD. Anyways, what I was saying, blah, 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 and I'll keep doing that. But throughout the rest of the presentation, I'm pretty much, all business, keeping them on track. And then I'll throw in these little things like here and there as I'm asking questions, and it's to gain information. So I might be, as I'm asking their, who's your beneficiary? They say, oh, my daughter. I'm like, oh, are they local? I'm asking that in a way that they're like, yeah, they just live right down the street. But I'm gathering intel in that, like, okay, they're local, so that means I need to integrate that somehow in how I explain, like, how this coverage will benefit them, their daughter who lives locally, who's single mother, whatever. I'm finding those little things, building rapport, and then a lot of rapport. My real personality comes out as I'm just tangents and talking and letting them talk about whatever through the application. So that's
well, yeah, it's the timing,
right.
And it's not like this clown show. I think there's a bit of a false misconception of, hey, I need to be best friends with everybody so that they trust me enough to purchase, which is the literal opposite of what happens. If you're just chummy with everybody and everybody's your good buddy, then you're not the professional anymore. They're just some nice guy that came to the house to see how I was doing today, asked about the grandkids, asked what my favorite hobby was, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, this is going to be easy to say no to this person because they'll get it. They'll totally get it because we're buds.
Right.
And then you lose all that credibility and authority and direction that you need to have throughout that appointment. So I love that. I think, to your point, during the application process, like, let's open up. That's when you really solidify your rapport during the sale. I think most of that should happen through, like, we're taking action now. Let's do some open-ended questions instead of some intentional controlled ones.
Right. Especially because that's where, there could be a little bit of sales resistance. So anytime there's sales resistance or spots within a process that there could be sales resistance, I'm following it up with humor, and I'm cracking the dad jokes. I'm doing the self-deprecating humor. Like, people appreciate that, and it brings their guard down. So, like, for example, in an application for insurance, we have to ask about, social, driver's license, banking information. And they might have just met me 20 minutes ago. That could be, a little concerning for some. And so, when I'm telling them, hey, just so you know, the application, go ahead and grab your driver's license as they're doing that. Hey, just so you know, application's going to ask for basic things, driver's license and social to verify your identity, banking information to verify that you have a way to pay for this, and then random questions like, do you go skydiving or scuba diving? And there are some applications that ask that, and there's some that don't. But every time they always laugh, and that if there was any sort of hesitancy with the social and the banking information, they've now forgotten. They've laughed like, oh yeah, he's non-threatening. We're just having a good time. Let's go into it. So I think that's how you can build rapport, is throughout the conversation, and you do that really well. Little dad jokes, little self-deprecating humor, but especially doing it tactfully,
One of those.
tactically around those potential high pressure spots in the presentation.
Well, and the comedic sales pressure relief, I think is huge, and that's where you get to truly let your personality out a little bit.
Right.
Same thing. Hey, I'm gonna need driver's license, date of birth, social, bank information, and then they'll make sure that you don't work for Red Bull on the side where you're jumping out of planes at 83. Yeah. That kind of stuff where they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that still, or those days are over for me. I don't do that anymore.
Right.
That's what truly creates a connection, and then now you're like, okay, they get it. I think that's when I'll really feel like if I can get them to laugh, dude, I know we're good.
Yes.
Because I know that there's a little bit of trust. I know that they're relaxed because anytime somebody laughs, they're in a good mood and they're relaxing.
Yep.
So I think that comedic relief is huge, and you get to let a little personality out, which makes our job fun.
Right. So maybe 2 things that people could implement: try to make people laugh. If you're not funny, don't try. But dad jokes go a long way, so you can Google those. So try to make people laugh, and then I think people really want to work with someone, a client to advisor role, with someone who knows their stuff and it is a professional. So when I'm explaining the process and I'm articulate with it, I think that builds more rapport than the guy who sits there and just asks about their favorite hobby, right? So those 2 things, I think, like you said, try to make them laugh, let them know, hey, you're a professional. I think those 2 things are really kind of the 2 keys to building good rapport.
Awesome, dude. I appreciate you.